Welcome to One Mind Zen. Tonight's Dharma talk is given by Yung Sunim.
Howdy, friends, neighbors. I'm so happy to be here with you tonight, this beautiful New Year's night. Um, it's some time ago, I think it was me, it was someone here, but I think it was me gave a talk here about not being a bodhisattva, emptiness and all that stuff, whatever. And I'm happily contradicting myself here tonight because I'm making a New Year's resolution to be more like a bodhisattva. And one good place to start looking for this sort of thing is, of course, the six paramitas, the six perfections. Shantideva and his The Way of the Bodhisattva organized the book according to the paramitas. And the first of them, Dana paramita, the perfection of generosity. Um, not just doing traditional forms of generosity sorts of stuff. You think of, but like a general orientation towards, or a inclination towards helping others, just as that way of being in the world. It might be partly expressed in, or certainly supported by, the four Brahma Viharas: goodwill, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity. But I think it's also helpful to have role models for this. What does a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, how does a Buddha or a Bodhisattva live in the world? How does one embody that sort of Buddhahood or the way of the Bodhisattva? And you start looking around for these role models. You can find some disappointments real quick, where you look into some quote Zen master, and you end up finding sex scandals and money scandals. Um, and at Scudder Falls, I think it was there, somebody referred to me as a Zen master, and I joked, how dare you call me that? I don't sleep with my students. Um, but I have had role models. I mean, my teacher Andre, who, well, actually, not very many of you here know, but maybe some of you know. I learned a lot from him. Humility. Not believing in the realness of the roles we play, not thinking of Zen, as they say, accepting my ordinariness. There's a few other really, like, very famous Buddhists who are quite inspiring, like Thich Nhat Hanh or Pema Chodron, are, their imperturbable joy and their calm, their compassion, their generosity. They seem pretty extraordinary and are really inspiring. But when it comes to Dana Paramita, the perfection of generosity, there's one person I always go back to. It's Mr. Rogers. I love Mr. Rogers, as in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I grew up with him. He invited me to be his neighbor, and I accepted. So he's always been a part of my life. He was there for me when I was a child. He's fantastic. So I think, what does Dana Paramita look like? I think Fred Rogers. Um, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote somewhere or other that one of the greatest acts of generosity that we can engage in is just being present for people. He also wrote, or giving people space. Those are two good complementary ones. But I think when it comes to that generosity as being present with folks, Fred Rogers is just the greatest embodiment of that. There's at least one documentary about him. Obviously, there's his Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. See him. There's a dramatic film about him. I really encourage people to check him out. He's got some books as well you can read, and just like see the way that he is with children. To watch the way, how incredibly present he is. Well, he's like that with everybody. I guess he treats everybody the way he treats children, um, in a good way. But just so present with them. Is so curious about them. So interested in figuring out what is it that child needs at that particular moment. It's like a miracle to watch him, like one-on-one with a child. It's extraordinary. And he's famous for saying, "I like you just the way you are." And of course, that doesn't mean, go ahead and be a little jerk. he's written about this. So I mean, this isn't me like interpreting or making it up. What he meant is how he likes the you that's underneath the anger, the sadness, the selfishness, the fear, whatever it may be. And you see him with kids. He talk like, oh, he liked kids or he loved kids. But it wasn't just that. I think something really more important with him and kids is the way he respected kids. My partner Joe's, I mean, she's taught me, I mean, at least as much, if not more, than Mr. Rogers about that way of respecting kids. And I thought she put it really great when about like why we need to treat really not just love kids, but respect them as individuals. The way she said it was that, kids have, quote, big thoughts. There's also very Mr. Rogers sort of, I can't remember how he put it, but, similar sorts of things. Um, he's just extraordinary in the respect and the way that he's present with them. Again, it's like it's just miraculous watching him with kids. Now I know this talk, is about like bodhisattvas and all that, and I do hesitate to call Mr. Rogers a bodhisattva because it was really important to him that he was a Presbyterian minister, right? And so that could seem like diminishing him or the things that are important to him by referring to him that way. But then again, I don't think he'd mind in some ways, because of course he was a very pluralistic, open-minded sort of guy. But more important than that, I think just the way he is, if I said this in this sort of diminishing sort of thing, I think he would readily see past it and say, okay, this guy, yeah, it's kind of insulting, but this guy, he's trying to express appreciation and love and respect. And so he'd see past his own thing to see where that was coming from. But it was very important that he was a Presbyterian minister. His generosity, his nonviolence, love. I mean, that was very much grounded in Christianity, not Buddhism. And so I want to honor and respect that. It was his reading of the Gospels, Paul's letters. The example of Jesus, that's where he found things like goodwill, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, the four Brahma Viharas. Of course, it's not his Christianity. Christianity, like Buddhism, is insufficient. Remember, the sex and money scandals I just mentioned. Christianity has those just like Buddhism does. And Fred Rogers really had to work to become Mr. Rogers, right? And I mean, besides training, he went to seminary. He was trained as a child psychologist and just working on himself as well. And so Mr. Rogers, as we think of him, I mean, that came from innumerable conditions, like all things, right? Including his own experiences of being bullied, that experience of having difficulty expressing feelings in his home when he was a child. But regardless, I do honor the role of the crucial role of Christianity and him being what he was. Nonetheless, Mr. Rogers is my main role model for Dana Paramita, for that embodiment of generosity. The way of being in the world is just continually open to helping others. And so, Mr. Rogers, I like you just the way you are. And I'm so thankful that he was my neighbor and that he invited me and millions of kids and their parents to be his neighbor. I don't just like Mr. Rogers. I love Mr. Rogers. And so I resolve this year to be more like him, to be more like a bodhisattva. And so, neighbors, maybe you want to join me in this resolution. Either way, I like you just the way you are.